Some fathers get a phone call in the middle of the night that changes everything. I got 3 days of nothing, and that silence nearly broke me before my own sons ever said a word. You want to know what it feels like to love someone so much it turns into something closer to fear? It feels like standing in your kitchen at 2 in the morning, staring at a phone that refuses to ring, convinced your own child is lying somewhere in a hospital bed or worse. That was me, 53 years old, gripping a coffee mug so hard my hand ached, waiting for two grown men to pick up their phones. My name is Frank Delaney. I run a company outside Columbus called Ridgeline Medical Systems. We service the equipment hospitals can't operate without. Murray machines, surgical monitors, the things that beep and hum and keep people alive. I built that company from a two-man garage operation, and I built it so my sons would never know what it was like to go without. My own father wasn't around much. He worked 3 jobs and I barely saw him growing up. Nobody taught me how to throw a football. Nobody sat me down and told me I mattered. So when Owen was born, and then Blake 2 years later, I made myself a promise in that hospital hallway. These boys will never know that kind of empty. I kept that promise for 24 years. Then, on a Tuesday in late spring, that promise turned into the worst 3 days of my life. 3 days of silence. It started with a letter. Boring, official, the kind of thing you skim over coffee. Lease renewal notice, guarantor verification required. Owen's apartment. A gorgeous unit in downtown Charlotte with a view of the skyline. I'd co-signed that lease 2 years earlier when he landed his first real job. I'm the guarantor. My name, my credit, quietly holding the whole thing up. Before I could sign the renewal, I needed one quick answer from Owen about his income documentation. A 30-second phone call. I dialed him from my office. Straight to voicemail. Fine, he's probably busy. I left a message and went back to work. By the next afternoon, nothing. I called again. Voicemail again. Now, Owen doesn't always pick up right away, but he doesn't ignore me for a full day. Never has. I called Blake, figuring he'd know where his brother was. Voicemail, both of them. Same day. I told myself it was nothing. My wife Diane noticed something was off with me that night at dinner. 26 years of marriage, she can read a shift in my face before I even feel it myself. The boys aren't answering, I told her. Either of them, since yesterday. They're grown men, Frank. They're busy. She was probably right. So why did my stomach feel like it was folding in on itself? Day 3 is when it stopped being annoying and started being terrifying. The lease deadline was now 48 hours out. I called Owen 7 times that day. I called Blake 5 times. Every call died in a voicemail box. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw car wrecks. I saw 2 state troopers standing on my porch with their hats in their hands. That night, at 1 in the morning, Diane sat up behind me. Frank, come to bed. Something's wrong, I said, my voice cracking in a way I hadn't heard from myself in years. 3 days. Neither one of them. That's not busy. That's not normal. Maybe they're together. Maybe their phones died. Both phones? For 3 straight days? She saw it land on her face too, that same cold drop in the stomach. Pack a bag, I said. We're flying out there. The flight, we booked the first flight out the next morning. I stood at the gate watching the skyline shrink behind the window, thinking, this might be the worst decision I've ever made, or it might save their lives. I have no idea which. Diane held my hand the entire flight. Neither of us said much. I ran through every possible tragedy a father's brain can invent at 30,000 feet: a car accident, a break-in, Blake on that motorcycle he swore he'd sold. None of it prepared me for what was actually waiting behind that door. We landed just after 2 in the afternoon. Rented an SUV. Pointed it toward downtown. The whole drive, Diane kept saying the same thing on a loop, like she was trying to convince herself. They're fine, Frank. There's probably some boring explanation. Then why won't they pick up the phone? 14 calls between the two of us. Not one text back. She went quiet after that. The building rose up out of the skyline like something out of a magazine glass. Chrome. The kind of wealth that makes an Ohio guy feel out of place in his own rental car. We rode the elevator up in silence. My hand was actually shaking when I raised it to knock. 24 years of fatherhood, and I was standing outside my own son's door like a man about to identify a body. That's when I heard it. Music, laughter, loud, easy, celebratory laughter. Balloons taped beside the doorframe, bobbing gently. That's not the sound of tragedy, I thought, and for 1/2 second relief flooded through me so hard my knees nearly buckled. Thank God they're okay. I knocked. The music dipped. Footsteps. The door swung open to reveal Owen, drink in hand, a grin frozen halfway between surprised and something far colder. That grin didn't stay confused for long. Stay on your own? What are you guys doing here? Not Dad. Not is everything okay? Like we were salesmen he'd have to figure out how to get rid of. I've been calling, I said, keeping my voice steady, even though my chest felt like it was folding in on itself. You didn't answer. I thought something happened to you. Diane pushed past me, hands flying to her mouth. Oh, thank God. Son, you're okay. We've been calling for 3 days straight. We were sick with worry. Owen cut her off before she finished the sentence. He rolled his eyes, a full, dramatic, exhausted eye roll. We didn't answer because we didn't want to talk to you, he said, flat and final. Stop calling us. We have our own lives. You're suffocating us. Just stay on your own. 4 words. I've been hit by a lot of things in my life. None of them landed the way those did. Before I could find words, a young woman stepped up beside Owen, holding a glass of something pink and bubbly. Honestly, she said, crossing her arms, it's too much. Do you guys ever stop hovering? Diane blinked at her, completely lost. I'm sorry, who are you? The girl raised her left hand, slow and deliberate. A ring caught the light. I'm Ashley, she said, his fiancée. And today is our engagement party, which you are currently ruining by showing up uninvited. Uninvited, ruining our son engaged. And we found out standing in a hallway, being told we were ruining it. I want to pause here, because this is the part where people who've never lived it would say, just walk away, don't make a scene. Some part of me was already halfway to the elevator in my head. But another part of me, the part that had flown 1,000 miles because I genuinely believed my sons might be in danger, needed to understand. Blake appeared in the doorway holding a tray of food and groaned the second he saw us. Are you serious right now? You guys couldn't let us have this one day? Son, I said, keeping my voice level, I didn't come here to ruin anything. Your landlord sent an urgent notice. Your lease renewal deadline is tomorrow, and because I'm the guarantor, I needed to verify a detail before signing it. I called your brother. Then I called you. Neither of you answered for 3 days. Blake laughed short, mocking, no humor in it at all. Here we go again. The savior complex. You think because you co-signed a piece of paper you get to track our every move? This is exactly why we both picked schools thousands of miles from home. To get away from you. Owen nodded along, arms crossed. Exactly, we saw your calls. We purposefully didn't answer. We wanted to see how long it would take you to finally get the hint and stay on your own. Purposefully, not we were busy. Not our phones died. Purposefully, for 3 days I sat awake, picturing every possible danger they could be in, while my own sons watched my name light up their screens and chose, on purpose, to let their father suffer. Ashley tossed her hair back, bored. We're trying to celebrate our future with people who actually matter. Please leave. Please leave. In my own son's doorway, by a woman I'd met 4 minutes earlier. I didn't yell. That's not who I am. I just reached over, took my sobbing wife's hand, and turned toward the elevator. The longest flight home, Diane cried silently the entire way to the airport. Somewhere on the causeway, she finally spoke. 20 years, she said quietly. I kept my grandmother's ring polished for 20 years, Frank. I imagined giving it to whoever he chose. I imagined telling her the story, my grandmother coming over from Ireland with nothing but that ring sewn into her coat lining. I imagined. I don't know what I imagined. Not that. Not being told I'm ruining a party I didn't even know was happening. What do you say to that? I held her hand the rest of the way and said nothing. The flight home was the quietest 2 hours of my life. Somewhere over Georgia, something shifted in my chest, quiet but permanent, like a door closing in a house I thought I knew every room of. I gave them everything I never had. And somehow, in giving them all of that, I built two men who look at me like I'm the villain in their story. By the time we landed, something in me had already decided. I just didn't have the words for it yet. Pulling the guarantee, we walked into our house that night, and the silence hit different than it ever had. Diane made it 2 steps past the front hall before her knees gave out. She went down onto the living room floor and cried the way you cry when someone dies. I got down on the floor with her. Didn't try to fix it small miracle, since fixing things is the only language I've ever really known. Where did we go wrong? I asked, more to myself than her. She lifted her head, eyes swollen. No, Frank, you didn't turn them into anything. They did that themselves. You just handed them a life they never had to work for. And people who never work for something never learn to be grateful for it. We talked until sunrise. We agreed on one thing above everything else. Whatever happened next, we'd move together. No solo decisions, no guilt trips that would soften either of us at the wrong moment. I called my attorney, Marcus Webb, at exactly 8 in the morning. I need you to pull my name off Owen's lease guarantee. Today, before the renewal window closes. You sure about that? He asked. Once that lapses without your backing, there's no grace period on a place like that. I've never been more sure of anything. By 9:15, the withdrawal was filed. By noon, it was processed. The renewal deadline came and went at midnight with no signature attached to it. I didn't hear anything for 2 days, which felt almost funny. Given that the same silence that had nearly destroyed me a week earlier now felt like the most peaceful 2 days I'd had in months. The call came on a Thursday. Owen's name lit up my screen. I let it ring twice. Dad, there's some kind of mistake with the lease. They say the renewal didn't go through. No guarantor. They just served us a notice to vacate, and they're doubling our rent for 7 days until we're out. There's no mistake, son. I withdrew as guarantor 2 days ago. Dead silence. You what? Dad, why would you do that? If they file an eviction, it goes on my public record. My credit will be destroyed. You told me to stay on my own, I said. So I am. Dad, please call them back. Tell them it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Owen. I'll talk to you soon. I hung up. The yellow truck, they didn't wait for an eviction. They packed 48 straight hours of clothes into garbage bags and left. I heard later that security didn't force them out. Security just watched them pack, wheeling their life out on a luggage cart through the same lobby where 2 weeks earlier they told their own mother she was ruining their engagement party. I didn't stop there. Over the following week, I called our bank and revoked authorization for Owen to use my company's collateral on his business credit line. The bank froze his draw and demanded new security within 30 days. I called the lender on Blake's truck and informed them in writing that I was refusing to cover any future delinquencies as cosigner. His credit alone was a disaster. The bank flagged the loan as high risk and demanded an immediate restructure. I didn't do it with anger. I just let the financial institutions do what they do best, look at my son's actual worth without my shadow covering them. They showed up on our porch 3 weeks later. They didn't have a choice. Owen's business collapsed without the credit line. With no apartment to live in, they'd packed a rental truck and driven 12 hours straight back to Ohio. Blake pounded on the door like it owed him an apology. I let them in, sat them down in the same living room where Diane had collapsed weeks earlier. Owen went first, crying before he even got through the doorway. How could you do this to us? We're your family. You're ruining our lives over a small argument. Small argument? I asked, my voice entirely empty. You watched your mother and me call you for 3 days straight while we were sick with worry. You ignored us on purpose to teach me a lesson. Now the world is teaching you one. You're just a control freak who wants to see us fail, Owen shouted. This is a sick revenge plot because we didn't invite you to a party. I don't want to see you fail, son, but you told me you didn't need me hovering. I'm just honoring your wish. If you truly don't need me, you don't need my name on your apartment. You don't need my collateral for your business. You don't need my signature on your debt. That's not revenge. That's adulthood. Diane stepped into the room, arms crossed, voice steady. Your father and I are on the same page. We talked about this together. We both agreed to honor your wish to be left alone. I stood up, put my hand gently on her shoulder. So here we are, I said. We're leaving you alone. Good luck. They left that night without another word. Rewriting the legacy, I went to see Marcus again the following week. This time, it wasn't about a lease. I want to rewrite the trust, I told him. Completely. If I die first, everything goes to Diane. If she dies first, everything comes to me. And if we're both gone, I paused, and for the first time in weeks, something settled in my chest instead of tearing through it. $0 go to the boys. Instead, it goes to scholarship funds for kids of fallen military veterans. Kids whose fathers never came home. Kids who'd give anything just to have a father call them once and actually mean it. Marcus didn't ask me to reconsider. He just nodded and got to work. Months passed. The calls from Owen and Blake slowed, then stopped. I heard through a family friend they'd moved into a smaller place together somewhere outside the city, no more skyline views. Learning the hard way what a budget looks like when your name isn't backed by somebody else's signature. I won't pretend it doesn't sting some nights. It does. But every time that ache creeps in, I remember the hallway. I remember stay on your own. I remember watching my wife's face fall apart over a ring that never got its moment, and the ache settles back down where it belongs. Diane and I sit on our back porch most evenings now, coffee in hand, watching the sky fade over the same backyard where two boys once learned to ride bikes. I stayed up half the night assembling. She reached over one evening and put her hand on mine, the way she's done 1,000 times over 26 years. My own father worked himself into the ground trying to give me a life he never had. I spent my whole life trying to give my son something even better. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that the only person I truly needed to protect was the woman sitting right beside me the entire time. My sons have their own lives now. They made that crystal clear, standing in a doorway in Charlotte. My wife and I, we have each other. And that, it turns out, is more than enough.